When you start a company, and I was just asked a question earlier, what do entrepreneurs do when you have a great idea? I hate to burst your bubble, you're not the only one with that idea. It is very likely that if it's a great idea, a lot of people have that same idea. It is very, very likely. And so I think that you should start with that assumption, that I'm not the only person with this idea. And in fact, when NVIDIA first started as a company, we were the first consumer 3D graphics company started in the world, and we started the company in Silicon Valley. Within about 60 days, and certainly we didn't go out telling everybody when we started this company, within 60 days or so, there were 50 other companies doing it. Today, they're all gone, and we survived. But nonetheless, a lot of great people come up with great ideas at about the same time. And the last thing that I learned is that the IPO is in fact not guaranteed. At the time that you came up with the idea, the road between that idea to going public is such a long road that if that is the reason why you're doing it, you're going to have a very hard time. And for a lot of people that start companies, or even companies that go public and then subsequently went out of business, if that is the purpose for you doing it, I think that you're going to find that you're going to be heartbroken many times along the way. And you're going to break the hearts of a lot of people who have trusted you and break the hearts of a lot of people who have followed you. So you have to do it for the right reason. Now, I'm not sure what everybody's right reasons are, but certainly my right reason, the reason for me, and I think the reason for our company, has been to build a company that is sustainable, build a company that is influential, build a company that is respected. And ultimately, for us, what it was all about was building a company that made a difference. And so, for us, that was our reason, and that was our reason that's good enough any day. Whether you're about to go out of business, that's a great reason. Whether you're on top of the world and your stock is trading at whatever it is, that's a great reason. Or the next day when the investors decide that they no longer like your company, although nothing fundamentally changed, that's also a great reason. So you need to find yourself a reason that can survive the swings in the economy, the swings in the stock market, and the swings in competition. The second thing has to do with a search for a fundamental advantage. And this is what everybody does. Every company is constantly looking for it. Every manager is asking you for it. If you're about to go see a venture capitalist, they're going to ask you really these top two questions. Now, you have to have good answers for them. I'm not suggesting that you don't try to answer these. I think the interesting thing is that, in fact, there are no fundamental advantages. Unless you have a monopoly or unless you somehow carved out an airwave that nobody else can get to. By and large, the majority of large markets are very supportive of competition. And the majority of your customers, and the larger you become and the more relevant you become, are going to want to encourage more competition. And so there are no fundamental competitive advantages. So the question for you then is how do you create ongoing advantages in your company? Execution certainly matters a great deal. And I think that within your question is in fact the fact that having simpler ideas that you can execute perfectly is sometimes better than having a grandiose idea that your company can't execute on. Okay, and so when you get large as a company and when you're trying to do complicated things, in fact, it is most prudent to keep it simple. Many ideas surface, and a lot of people say, Jensen, why didn't you guys do this? Why didn't you do this? Or our engineers asking, why didn't we put this feature in? We could have done all that. I mean, it wasn't because we didn't have the ability to have the idea. You have to decide as a company, you have to decide as a engineering team or as an innovator to say, you know what? I don't need to change the world overnight. I'm going to change the world over the next 50 years. I don't need to build a killer product overnight. I just need to build a winning product. And the goal of winning is so that you can play again. It's just like pinball. Okay? If you could just play well enough to get another game, you could be there for a long time. Most companies just need to realize that, in fact, this is a long road and that you can't build that perfect product. So once you do that, then you keep the project's scope confined. You keep the project now simple. You have a long-term vision, but your product definition is rather simple. You execute flawlessly on that because your people now can execute on flawlessly on a simple plan, and you come back and do it again. And so I think that certainly is embedded in your question. Now, in terms of what got us to be here, whereas in our industry, certainly in Silicon Valley, the discussion about the early days of 3D graphics and the intense amount of competition in this industry, and yet NVIDIA survived through it all. There's been quite a bit of lore about that and quite a bit of written about that. I would say that our company wanted it more than everybody else. I do believe that as a company and as an entrepreneur, you have to want to succeed more than your competitors want you not to. And that is it's hard to teach. Somebody said recently that I'm the most tenacious CEO they've ever seen. I'm not exactly sure whether that's a compliment or not, but I'm certainly very my will to survive exceeds almost everybody else's will to kill me. And so I think that's probably appropriate. So what I learned in the last 10 years is that your corporate culture, which 10 years ago when I first started the company, I couldn't describe to you. And yet today, it is probably the single thing we can describe best. Your corporate culture is probably the single most important thing as a CEO or as an entrepreneur you ought to invest your time in. And that corporate culture is about innovation. That corporate culture, in our case, is about intellectual honesty. Intellectual honesty to us means that we have the ability to be self-critical, that we have the ability to recognize we've made mistakes, that we have the ability to recognize that, in fact, unless we do something, we're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. Okay, so those kind of intellectual honesty is really relevant, I think, in the building of companies today. And recognizing that as a leader in this company, that your employees have the ability to take the criticism, that they have the confidence to know that they're not on top of the world and that they have constant threat. That attitude, I think, is pretty important. The third thing is, you think you've got great engineers? Everybody's got great engineers. You know, Stanford University pumps out a great deal of very high caliber engineers, but so does MIT, and so does Carnegie Mellon, and so does USC. Many, many universities pump out great engineers. And today, the great engineers all have great tools. And it's very likely they all have pretty good funding. And so the challenge then is, now your idea is not unique. You also haven't discovered some kind of a fundamental secret sauce. And you know that your team, although extraordinary, and you're really proud of them, is by and large no better than anybody else's team. This is really just like football in the final analysis. We have a salary cap too. Everybody's got a salary cap. Everybody's got the same number of it. You know, how many engineers does it take to build a chip? And can you add 10,000 engineers to build a single chip? So it's along the lines of what is the phrase of saying, you know, you can't deliver a baby in a month with 9 women. I mean, I think the same thing applies with engineering. Okay, at some level, having 10 times more engineers is not helpful. And so what that really says is, you know, in the 10 years that I've been at NVIDIA, there's not been a single thing that I can currently put my finger on that can tell you is the sustainable idea since our beginning. Not one. Every single good idea we invented last 30 days. And there's a phrase that many of our employees are delighted to tell you. And if there are any investors out in the world, I'm saying this in jest. I don't actually mean it in reality, but our employees will say, Jensen's always telling us we're 30 days from going out of business. We have $1 billion in the bank today. We're not really going to go out of business in 30 days. And if there are any employees, don't flee for the door. But the fact of the matter is, the idea, the notion that you have to reinvent yourself every 30 days is a very important one. The idea that the world changes so rapidly, so whatever techniques and whatever advantages or whatever technology you had, or whatever strategies you had, are really, in fact, going to be obsolete 30 days from now. And so you have to stay on your toes. You have to innovate constantly. And you have to assume that you're going out of business every 30 days. It is, in fact, so the question has to do with the dichotomy between reevaluation, being self-critical, constantly looking at the market and adjusting yourself as needed, versus building something of extraordinary complexity that takes 2 years to do. Okay? In order to build anything meaningful, you have to be committed to it. 2 years ago, when we started building GeForce Effects, the idea of building GeForce Effects was completely, utterly nonsense. Nobody asked us to build it. Not a single customer said they wanted it. And yet you need to have the courage to go forward with executing and doing what you believe is something that you're excited about. I mean, there's a little bit of self-entertaining that goes with building any company. I won't deny that. I build GeForce Effects first for me, and then second for my customers. And I hope that they buy some, okay? However, you need to build it, you need to have and I mean that not because I'm spending $300 million of shareholders' money to build myself a toy. I actually mean that in the sense that you need to have a vision first. And the vision has to start from somewhere. And it's very unlikely that your customers who are making purchasing decisions 30, 60 days out is able to tell you to invest $300 million to build something, and when you're done with it, they're committed to buy it. That's never going to happen. And so you need to have a passion, you need to have a vision, and you need to have some courage to go forward with it. Once you commit yourself to that, unless it's something pretty dramatic, and you don't commit yourself to a $300 million program lightly, okay? You really have to believe in it. Once you commit to it, it's very unlikely that I see something that's going to cause me to veer away from it, okay? And so I think that it's no different than your hobbies or something that you care deeply about. Even though everybody tells you it's the wrong thing to do, you are absolutely convinced of it. You've got to go pursue that. You've got to go after that vision. So I think that vision you got to stay focused on. Now, there's all kinds of adjustments along the way. Features, maybe people don't like doorknobs that way anymore. Maybe people rather have two-seaters instead of four-seaters. You got to make those kind of adjustments. But you need to also be clear that features are features and your vision is your vision. Okay? That features is not something you get religious about. Features is not something you get, so wrapped up around that you can't possibly let go of a screw or the color of the color of the package or whatever it happens to be, So you just have to make sure that you distinguish that, and then you balance that as you go. In our case, reward mistakes. The majority of our great ideas came out of mistakes. The majority of our great ideas came out of adversity. And so I think that you want to create an environment where anybody can have a good idea. You want to create an environment where even my ideas, the CEO's idea, is a bad idea. And I think that you want to create an environment that is able to see adversity as an opportunity instead of as a life-threatening event. And I think if you could figure out a way to do that and encourage people to take calculated risks, and often, when you take calculated risks often, you will create mistakes often. And when you see those mistakes as opportunity, you will get a lot of ideas often. I think that's just the bottom line. A product that's called GeForce Effects. With every single architecture, one of the things that we ask ourselves right off the bat is, what is the purpose of its existence? What is the soul of this product? I think that's one of the things that we've done really, really terrifically in our company. Because most of our products have brand names, and most of these brand names are so sought after and so worldwide recognized that we've really given our products, these semiconductor devices, a personality. The GeForce brand is, my understanding, the second most popular technology brand in China, right behind Pentium. And so I think the personality of our products really stand out as a result of us really searching for what is the soul of the product. I would love to build the world's first holodeck. I would love for the characters to touch back. I think that, no question, we're going to move in that direction. There are, in fact, interesting technologies, but one of the interesting technologies is extremely lightweight displays that you put on as goggles with head tracking. And so all of a sudden, you are immersed in a 3D environment, not by moving joysticks or the mouse or keyboards or whatever it is, just by looking around. That has, in fact, quite an amazing ability to suspend you in disbelief. The technology exists today is rather expensive. The lightweight ones with high resolution is extremely expensive, but it does exist today. Head tracking technology, the latency is coming down to a level where it's almost unnoticeable. There's no question that this type of technology will be available in the future. The question is what's beyond that. I'll tell you that I don't know, but I'm certain that as I get closer, I'll discover it. Now, the question of where are we going to go from here, our goal is actually rather simple. We believe that, and maybe this is a way to think about it, when we first started the company about 10 years ago, the majority of us see pixels, see graphics from a CRT. All of the computers at NVIDIA were CRT-based. All of the computers in our demo room were CRT-based. CRT-based computing fundamentally has is challenged from a transportability perspective, it's challenged from a miniaturization perspective, and it's challenged from a cost perspective. It will never, ever be light, it will never be cheap, it will never be everywhere. And yet, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, LCD technology, powered by semiconductor technology, is now everywhere. The LCD technology, and of course in the future, other type of technologies as OLEDs, will make displays more and more prevalent. And our hope is that we'll drive as many of those pixels as we can. So our goal as a company is to light every pixel in the world.